I'll go ahead with the first question to Nishith bhai. Nishith bhai, according to you, in your view, what are the key driving factors of setting up a family office with the Indian context? With that, would you also like to highlight a little bit in terms of what is the path that one should take? Should he look at a single family office? Should he look at starting with a multi-family office option and then migrating into a single family office? And what are the parameters that you should really look at in this aspect?
Well, fundamentally, is it working? Working, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, the way in which I would look at is, rather than starting with one office or other office, important thing is why are you doing what you are doing? And as we have seen, the evolution has been from the time India began to open up, we didn't have too much of wealth, if you see. Only in 1991, first time India opened up, people were scared. Foreign companies would come and eat us away. And so we were in a survival mode for first 10 years of liberalization. We not only survived, but in the next 10 years we prospered. Okay? And now because we prospered so much, many of us, excluding me though, but when people prospered, now I'm seeing lot more interest in philanthropy and give back and stuff like that. So if you have to set up, because people are just learning how to set up office, why should they have an office in the first instance, stuff like that, getting to the basics. But once basics are done and you want to outsource your, so if you want to outsource your some kind of family office, the first thing is, do you have an in-house capacity? Second, you go out, but then you have to evaluate who can do it. Because when you outsource, people are not used to outsourcing in India, right? Now people begin to, even to appoint somebody as a trustee is a big hassle, right? So we are just graduating to that level. Now a lot of families have come up. So there is no hard and fast rule. All of us know about whether one of the single office or multi offices, but both have their advantages and disadvantages. So at times you have a single office kind of thing, they would be very dedicated to you and they will do it. But at the same time, when you have multiple offices, they also have different experience of simultaneously managing. And if you are not, if you're ultra high net worth, it perhaps makes more sense to go for single office, and there's complete dedication and their lifestyle and everything that comes into that. But otherwise, one can look at multi-office structure, MFOs kind of situation. So I would think that at this point in time, awareness is just beginning to happen. People are experimenting. Also, there are people who have, people like Jai, have extremely good experience. But some people don't have experience, and they start managing it without understanding and I'll go into that a little later, understanding the objective for which something is being done. So they look at in terms of investment and in terms of returns and stuff like that, but the whole family objective of setting up this is sometimes lost, So as I mentioned, everything goes back to why do you want to do, and based on that, you look at single offices or multiple offices, But today I see more and more people are coming up in the marketplace. So obviously standards are going to come up. Even organizations like STEP, on which Pranav and I work together, which is a Society of Estate and Trust Planning, which is world's largest body, that has also come up to create more professionalism in the country. So I think we are just evolving at this point in time.
So more on the vision and clarity in terms of why you want to really set up a family office, based on which you should then look at the option of whether you should do it in-house or whether you should do it outsourced, and then identify the right skill sets. If you can identify a larger family setup in-house, then accordingly. So it's more to do with what's the real concept of really setting a family office and what's your vision behind that. Accordingly, we should take a call. Is that?
Absolutely.
Pranav, coming on to you, Nishith bhai rightly said that we are still in the evolving space.
Sure.
But what is the right time you would advise a family to consider moving into a family office setup?
Right. So, I mean, the most important thing is whether we have the right kind of scale. So, once a certain size of the family wealth, the diversity of the wealth is of a certain type, the fact that it needs independent management, identification of opportunities and so on. Also the size of the family and the diversity in the family and the needs of the family would be critical. But by and large, I think there is a tremendous amount of scope, because in India we have hardly scratched the surface yet. So what I believe is some of the larger families and the mid-sized families first have to really embrace it in their full gusto. Automatically that traction will happen. I think increasingly, as Nishith bhai was saying, the awareness is rising. Right. And I don't think one can lay down any particular rigid limit that if the wealth is above a certain threshold, a family office is the right thing to be set up at that point of time. But I would feel that in most cases of clients that we meet, the right time to set up the family offices, I would say, is quote unquote now. So I mean, in most cases, the time has already arrived and probably it's already overdue, as I would see. Yes, the size and scale has to be of a certain size in order to justify all that it takes to set up the family office. And there are various categories that we see here. So one could really have only some of the administrative services or activities being done by the family office, to a maybe fully integrated, full-blown family office which handles everything from start to finish. So depending upon the need, one could also ensure that one has the right kind of a setup which probably serves the needs of the family best and the needs of the businesses also best and the investments best.
Perfect. So again, it boils down to getting the families together on the right platform and having a right vision.
Correct.
To somewhere be able to have a right direction to go into.
Absolutely.
So that becomes a very core competencies of your base of your family office.
Absolutely. And there are no compulsions in the sense of a legal or regulatory requirement. But what we typically see is, especially when there are listed entities in the group, traditionally what family businesses have done is all their family wealth, personal affairs are also handled by the operating company, staff, infrastructure, people and so on. Those days are gone today in terms of SEBI, the regulatory environment, the corporate governance standards that we see today, and also the need for confidentiality and privacy and so on. So I would feel the need has really come and has arrived in a big way. It's only a question of the awareness coming, best practices from across the globe being adopted here. And as we increasingly see businesses and families set up family offices, others are almost on a daily basis asking questions as to whether they should also move in that direction. So the direction is very, very clear. I think it's a matter of time before we have big, large-scale movement to family offices.
We should also start thinking and delinking ourselves in a manner where the companies that are run professionally,
absolutely,
and the businesses or the family business or family office, what you call it, has to be delinked from
absolutely
listed companies and other affairs.
That's exactly what I was saying, yes, absolutely. And that, I think, increasingly that awareness is coming, recognition and acknowledgement is happening, and people are wanting to do that increasingly. Those confidants in the operating companies are now being left to deal with the operations and the businesses, because that's where their skills are best used, rather than use that bandwidth for all of these matters. Yeah.
Perfect. Jay, on your side, I believe you're already running a family office. So what is the kind of competencies or difficulties that you're facing in doing that, in terms of identifying the right skill sets, in terms of identifying the right people to join in at the right time? So what is it that practical difficulties that you're facing in terms of those lines?
So typically what happens is, just to add to what Pranav and Nishith bhai has said, I think they both bring very valid points just to set the stage. One is, there has been growth of wealth, and as wealth has grown, the realization among the patriarchs has been that this has to be cross-generational, and this has to be managed as a business. So earlier, as Pranav said, it is part of existing big, large corporate. There are few people handling it. It's not the prime focus. You could be running a $1 billion business, but you have a few people running around managing your wealth. But today, the complexity of investments, the need for succession planning, the need to be plugged into all the vagaries of the market. I mean, we are getting closer and closer as a globe. Some interest rate changes in the United States, you have an impact here, that has an impact on China's export. I mean, everything is so integrated that you cannot just take a blank call. Someone comes and says, sir, this is a great structured product, do it. I think no longer can you say, theek hai, put some money here, we'll see where it goes. So I think that first is a need. The need has arrived that all analysis needs to be looked at one holistically, as Richard said in the morning. That has become a core thing, that one, what is the family's desire to do with this wealth? Preservation, growth, charitable philanthropy, lifestyle features, what do we want? And then what is the allocations we are working with? So the challenge you have here today is, as you're setting up, is the team that is running it should have that vision, should be able to tie up all the multitude of investment opportunities and be able to give the right answer. So that is always a struggle today, because you have to have been around on the block to kind of evaluate the different opportunities.
So somewhere you think that certain portion of the family office can be dealt in-house. For certain expertise, you could look at outsourcing, because
Absolutely.
not necessarily you can build everything in-house.
Correct.
So on certain wealth portions, maybe for investment needs, maybe for protection needs as a trustee, or
Yes.
maybe for some other requirements, you could have a combination of doing certain things in-house and having the right skill sets to support your in-house family office would be a best combination to look at somewhere.
I think that's a very accurate thought process, because to set up a full-fledged family office, the assets you need to manage are to be significant, because today the cost of manpower and the cost of talent is also very high. So it's better at every stage. People have realized that this now needs to be monitored, this needs to be managed, and you can have experts on retainer who can help you on your trust issues, who can help you on equity investing, on the bond markets, and get expert advice from the teams like Quant Capital, who are looking at all the different asset classes, monitoring it, and actually tap into those rather than having someone on a desk in your office. Absolutely. So I think it has to, the way we look at it ourselves is a hybrid model.
A right blend.
Yeah, so you have the strategy, holistic stuff in-house, you have your accounting team in-house, you have maybe one or two investment professionals, it's fairly lean, you're primarily trying to tie up most of the back end, and as your deal flow emerges, you will outsource for diligence to a legal partner, again to an accounting partner, everything is set up. So it just flows. Everyone knows each other, and you say, let's see this through.
Perfect. Nishith bhai, coming back to you, in terms of structuring,
Right.
what do you think should be the right path taken? What should be the kind of vehicles used to surround and support your family office? Do you think a trust structure is the one that should be your base? Do you think company structure, or how do you manage these kind? And if it's a trust structure, should the trustees be an outsourced corporate trustee, because that's where your ring fencing comes in? Should you have a combination of vehicles supporting your family office? If you have somewhere cross-border wealth, how do you integrate that with your domestic family office, or do you have two independent family offices? So how do you look at
Sure.
structuring the entire...
Let me give you touch a subject that's very much at my heart, and I do it all the time. If I may give you a little perspective on how to think about it. So, because ultimately you all decide. So if I can give some direction to thinking how you should be looking at it. You don't start with structure.
Okay.
All of you are in the field of management, and most important thing is structure follows strategy.
Absolutely.
Strategy doesn't follow structures. In the architectural language, we say form follows function, function doesn't follow. Okay. Same way, before you talk of structure, you should think of strategy. Now, strategy, again, as all of you know, is all about choices. Correct. Of course, other definition of strategy, I Say strategy is the differentiation you create, which differentiation even if known to others cannot be copied, otherwise it's tactic. But I'm not going into that side of the discussion, I'm talking about the form follows function. So strategy being all about choices. Now how do you make choices in life? So in my hierarchy, because I'm a student of arts and philosophy, so I believe that all decisions in life you make based on your philosophy. Every statement of the chairman of a company starts with corporate philosophy. Similarly, family should start with whosoever is driving it must have an idea about philosophy. Because as I mentioned, to make choices, you need to have good philosophical background. In esoteric terms, philosophy and mathematics are somewhat similar if not identical. Because if your principles of maths are clear, your decision, you say 1 plus 1 answer is clear. Similarly, if your philosophical base is clear, you're clear about what kind of thing, what do you want at the end of the day. So from philosophy emerges, as you know, the mission and the vision and then goals and the strategy and then structure. Okay. So we should not just start with structure, this structure is good or bad or otherwise. Start with what ultimately you want and how do you want to go about it. So that will be one way to look at it. So once you have come to a conclusion that, okay, this is the philosophy, this is the mission or this is the goal, sometimes you want to maximize your wealth. And many a times people want to maximize happiness. Okay, really speaking, this is a very big dilemma for every single, I would not say every single, at least 95% of the cases which come to me, okay, on a global basis, especially from India, instead of leaving wealth, you leave behind more disputes and disgruntledness and quarrels. That is your big legacy rather than the money per se. So you have philosophical approach that I want to avoid any of those things. Based on that, you start working on that. Once you come to some kind of terms with what do you want, okay, then you develop a structure. When you look at the structure, there are a number of different types of issues that come up. But particularly talking because you talked about trust and other thing. Trust is a very flexible animal. I love trust. Global basis, I've used trust, okay. Once you are a corporate entity, you are bound by the rules framed by the corporate law, right? So I generally like the trust structure. Now we have also used globally, it's not available in India, is foundation. Because foundation is an interesting structure, Lexington and Jersey and some of those jurisdictions have that flexibility. So it is a company, it is a corporate. There is a board of directors or that kind of a body. But they have a discretion to distribute asset in such proportion as they like. Absolutely. Unlike in a regular company, shareholder is a specific proportion. So, that kind of entity is also very important. And some of you know there are new rules coming up, control foreign companies and others, for that purpose use it. So, it is a mix of little tax and other kind of stuff as well. But trust I generally prefer. Only thing is that you must have a right trustee. And, but it depends on what kind of asset, what kind of wealth you've got, where the wealth is sitting. If it's in the US, global wealth, then estate tax becomes very important. How do you plan around that? You understand your family better, so divorces and stuff like that, you plan for that. So based on that, you can have there are n number of different types of trust. Right. And those different type of trust give you flexibility and at the same time, some kind of, returns and less taxation also. Corporate companies usually are doubly taxed at the corporate level and dividend tax and whatnot. So I would not go into too many details, but the thing is that there are wide number of entities available. I'll stop here at that. That apart from trust, there are LLPs and there are LLCs and there are foundations and there are corporates and there are a number of what is called PCCs available, right? So once you go into jurisdiction, you also need to see what kind of entity you want, because that will be customized to suit your needs. So again, I'll stop here. Sorry for my extended discussion on the subject.
Thank you so much. Pranav, just a short question to you. In terms of, while we all agree that family offices is a good thing to have, that's the next phase that we should look at. We should look at, working with multifamily or single families, depending on the needs of each family. But on the other side, while there's so much of goods, what is the drawback or a flip side that you see of getting into a structure like this? I mean, tomorrow if you're looking at a long term, you're looking at unwinding this structure, or maybe next generation does not feel like following the structure the way it was prepared. So from a tax angle, from a dismantling point of view, or from an operational limitation or disadvantages of getting into these kind of structures?
Sure, certainly. So just to supplement first what Nishith bhai was saying, and all of these kind of vehicles, entities are available, of course, depending on, and today we see increasing amount of complexity, family members are spread across the world, assets are and investments are across the world. So the vehicle also has to be such that it can work, function flexibly and over a long period of time across several asset classes, across several jurisdictions and so on. If we talk of India particularly, we have also been seeing in certain cases family offices using vehicles like AIF, Alternative Investment Fund, venture capital funds and so on. So apart from the typical company structure, trust structure, LLP structure and so on, that's something that we are seeing interestingly being used by family offices when it comes to India structures. Coming to your point on how does one address some of the disadvantages that could flow from a structure, yes, even while we are planning a structure, one of the points that is very critical and which needs to be kept in mind and which invariably we try and factor into our decision making analysis is how does one going forward over a period of time deal with various scenarios. What is the life of that structure, that particular vehicle? What would happen to that structure in case of different eventualities, scenarios and so on? If it has to be unwound or if it has to be in some form or shape modified.
Incorporate.
Even I would for any consultant to devise a structure which can be laws, they evolve the regulation.